Mark, super excited to have you. Welcome to the webinar. Very excited to dig into your experience in essentially going from zero to AI-enabled go-to-market teams at Netlify, specifically around customer support, customer success, and then some. But before I get into that, Mark, would love to hear a little bit more about your experience, your journey. Obviously, you're at one of the most sort of bleeding edge companies when it comes to AI. So tell us a little bit more about you and the role that you play at Netlify.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Mark Dorsi, CISO at Netlify. I'm a startup specialist. I've been in the game for many years at this point, and just really love making the world a better place through all my experience and those sorts of things when it comes to the startup community and really working across the board from an operations perspective. So I've had many roles over time, from systems administrator to operations specialist, architect, to CISO, to whatever it might be. I've done all those sort of things. And so at this point in time, I have, of course, at Netlify, I'm also the head of global customer support. And I've been working with Exordiom on really bolstering our overall posture when it comes to being able to support our enterprise customer base. So super excited to be here today. Thanks for the time.
Amazing, Mark. Thank you so much. And just for our viewers, a little bit about Exordiom Talent. We are a dedicated offshore go-to-market staffing service. We bring a little bit of a differentiated approach. Just as co-founder, I have been part and parcel of a lot of different revenue organizations. So we're bringing a lot of that revenue operator mindset when we are hiring folks from offshore and plugging them into amazing companies like Netlify. We try to bridge the gap between Silicon Valley and offshore. And naturally, because of remote work and AI, our jobs have gotten a lot easier. But for why this conversation today matters, we've been working with Mark and Netlify team for about a year. And really, one of the big conversation topics is most companies are talking about how they want to integrate AI. But the reality is they're stuck. They don't have the time, they don't have the team. And a lot of times they actually don't have the tools to make it happen in a meaningful way, especially in customer facing organizations. And that's why, Mark, you're here today to sort of enlighten the audience today, obviously with the working relationship that we've had, but maybe even some of the aspects of what has made it successful at a sort of crazy high growth company like Netlify. Before we dig into that, Mark, can you share a little bit about what this journey has been for you in this AI revolution, specifically at sort of a hot company, hot startup like Netlify?
Yeah, for sure. I think the big takeaway here is that Netlify is right in the middle of this entire movement, and AI is really at the forefront of everything that we've been working to do and striving to be over time. And it really allows us to be there, right? We are that component that can plug into the enterprise and allow them to really adopt AI at speed. Why? Because we provide all the necessary guardrails that are required for them to do so. You can imagine out there in the world that there's lots of different folks who are attempting to adopt AI at the moment. And just like you mentioned for support organizations, right? And security organizations, the business as a whole, there's a huge push to be able to really stand on the shoulders of AI as it goes forward. And from our perspective, right, it's been really important to be able to enable business at speed. We provide all those necessary guardrails that I mentioned so that the enterprise says those CTOs, those sorts of things can rest at ease. That as long as they do have a platform backing these sort of automated platforms that are out there, right, these agentic platforms that are out there, they'll be able to sort of rest at ease knowing that all the default security controls are in place. It's the same thing I look for when I'm working with organizations across the planet in order to ensure that all of our data, our customers' data, our personal data, those sorts of things all do remain safe and secure over time. And working with organizations like Exordium really helped us and continue to help us bridge the gap between where we want to be with AI in the future and really where we are today. Right? And today, we're able to get really good deflection from some of the tools that we've been able to build in over the past year's time. We get great deflection from some of these agentic responses for our customers, right? You can imagine we have developers. Developers want to be able to work at speed. They want to be able to operate at speed. And any sort of friction that's there really slows them down. We see great deflection rates,
Mhm.
which is fantastic, but it isn't for everything. And so we need the ability to really scale our organization up and down as we need to in order to meet the demands of our new customer base. We have a brand new developer that's emerging. It's not that they're not technical, it's that they expect you to do all the correct things by default. When those things don't
Absolutely.
happen or aren't easy, then they're going to end up uneasy in using your product or service, right? And so it needs to be very smooth and those sorts of things, which is why we've looked at companies like Exordium to help us out along this journey. And really being able to do staff augmentation at scale and at will has been really critical for our success thus far.
Yeah, I love the narrative, Mark. Like, I'm not a developer by any means, but I've had the opportunity to build a lot of our enterprise grade products. Everything from how we interview our folks that we place into companies to our own purpose built CRM to measuring our personnel's productivity. We've actually built these tools. I've built part of these tools, and they're all deployed on Netlify well before we even had this relationship. And the experience is amazing, right? It is, and I think you hit the vein saying your customers are now essentially demanding these things to be table stakes and essentially be done. So let's sort of dive right in, Mark. Netlify decided to go offshore with Exordium. The natural inclination when people hear offshore is there's a cost component to it. Of course, there's a cost arbitrage. But tell us a little bit more about what was your approach? Why did you decide to go offshore? Was the go-to-market model broken? Why didn't you invest in maybe hiring amazing, highly experienced talent here in-house in the US? Would love your perspective here.
Of course. Well, budget is always at the front of mind when it comes to these sort of things and what you're going to be able to get, right? Most bang for your buck. What we found through analysis with myself and the leaders of the support org when I took it on was that we really needed additional capacity. Why did we need that capacity? Because we wanted to take really all of our customers and bring them underneath one umbrella. Regardless of your tier, we want to be able to do an amazing job when it comes to supporting you. So how could we do that? Well, we can try and do things like through our forum support packages or anything to those sorts of things. But we found was that just wasn't super effective. So instead, what we wanted to do is give folks an amazing experience. What does that look like? Well, number one, of course, we did plug in a bit of AI. We got to do some initial response for folks, but then we wanted to be able to scale our teams. And so what did we do? We went out and we hired a whole group of frontline individuals. Their jobs are to respond to our customers faster than ever before and really get that done. Right. We also needed some folks to back them up. They were a little slightly more technical, but wouldn't necessarily have to have those speedy reply times. And in order to get that done, I found quickly that we needed to double the size of the team. That's five additional frontliners and five additional second liners. And in order to do that at speed and try and have that hiring motion can be very difficult with all the churn that can come as a part of that. So what do we do? We looked at our available partners out there, Exordium being one of them. We asked them, like, how fast can we hire? What would be our time to market? Right? I want to have talent that's really, really good and really, really fast. How can y'all help us? And that's really where we set off from a relationship perspective. We wanted to make those two things at the forefront. And then when we brought that to the team, we tried to be really transparent with them. We said, look, the only way this happens is if we have playbooks. So what do? We asked the team, we said, hey, could we get 3 playbooks created within a short period of time in order to offload this type of work? And the team came back, and instead of doing 3 playbooks, they did 33. They were
Wow.
so excited in order to be able to offload lots of these tasks that are day in, day out tasks, right? Then for them, they were just no longer interesting problems to solve. But for somebody new, somebody coming up in the world, somebody who wants to advance their career in this particular way, was an amazing opportunity for them. So it really was win-win at the end of the day. Going from 3 to 33 playbooks and enabling, the doubling of the team size in under 2 months' time, that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, that is amazing. And we'll get to outcomes a little later, but Mark, let's talk about this talent, right? Offshore has not been new to the world. Engineering product offshore has been rampant for a long time, and it's been very successful for a lot of companies. When you talk go to market, there's a customer element in it, and that's dangerous, right? You have a brand, you can't have that brand get affected. And in your world, you are selling to technical folks. You have developers as one of your audiences. And when this frontline, this CS team and the technical support team actually touches the end customer, there is an actual sincerity of making sure that the communication is strong, the response is strong. Now you're working with Exordium Talent, you're getting technical customer support resources. Tell us about your experience about the what these people bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. So For the frontline team, what we really wanted to concentrate on were those folks who wanted to do an amazing job, right, and never let you down. And those are really the two base requirements that we gave to the Exordium hiring team when we got that in there. Look, we need folks to be empathetic to the customer's plight, and that's really important to us. Why? Well, we want to deliver that world-class experience, regardless of what's going on. And we went through a couple of iterations with Exordium. We tried out a couple of different personality types, all that other sort of stuff, and we really settled on one specific set of criteria, which was just what I mentioned. And at the end of the day, we were starting to really get a ton of resumes and folks to look through. And in a very short period of time, we were able to staff up, which was great. What I mean by short time, within the first 2 weeks, we had our first hire. Within 30 days, we had 3 hires, and we had fully populated the team within about 6 weeks. Which meant we were able to ramp very fast. It brought on new challenges, of course, right? We had to be able to train fast, right? And those sorts of things. But at the end of the day, it was really that core set of qualities that we wanted to find out of these folks. And that really drove the overall process. Now, it wouldn't have worked if we didn't have playbooks. It wouldn't have worked if we weren't able to train at speed. It wouldn't have worked if we weren't able to onboard folks at speed. But at the end of the day, we were able to make our way through that because it was all under our control. What wasn't under our control and we had to pass trust on, we passed our trust into Exordium, and they went out and did an amazing job at sourcing talent. And that's really that trust moment that we had to have, which was pretty fantastic and allowed for a really amazing outcome for us thus far.
Yeah, Mark, we really appreciate that. And I think one of the things that we love providing back to our customers is the flexibility. It wasn't ever from the start saying, hey, Mark, let's get a team of 10 in place. It was exactly the concept of let's build the trust. Can we actually hire the best talent for your end outcome? And we can start at two, scale to three, four, and 10, and then sort of higher. So, we that is the operator mindset that we bring because we don't want to get our customers tied into something that is not going to work for their end customer, right? And both parties are sort of at loss. You talked a little bit about AI, right? So let's sort of switching gears. Going from no AI to AI native operations is a lot of the things that are on the minds of go-to-market leaders, CS leaders, and even CISOs, right? And when I think about that in terms of what Netlify did, you talked about these playbooks, you have run books, and a lot of times it's just a missing element in our in the companies that we sort of work with. Can you explain to us how somebody can enable this for their organization? What is a playbook and what is a run book where they can start taking in-house talent, elevate them, give them more ability to become more AI familiar, AI native, and actually spend the time and energy to do that and more. I think you called it a high impact work at Netlify, while a lot of that repetitive stuff and actions can actually be passed on to the offshore team. So what does that look like? What is a run book or a playbook?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, we want every one of our players to be able to work from a point of passion and wanting them to feel they've done an amazing job for the customer and by the customer. So what did we do? The concept of a playbook is initially rudimentary. Our team goes off and creates really the framework for the playbook. Playbook will give the receiver the steps that the writer of the playbook thinks the receiver needs to have in order to be successful. The updates that happen are the most critical piece. So what ends up happening is that we tend to shadow, right? Then do, then own over time. So in that shadow moment, it's up to the individual who's learning how to do the task and follow that playbook to update and polish that playbook over time. It's really the most important component. It starts to put it into the words of the receiver versus the individual who's been doing it forever. And maybe some details get left out, whatever that is, right? And so we really emphasize that it's super important for everyone, regardless of their level, to be able to have an amazing impact and contribution. This is where they can have their first level of impact. Have they been trying to make these playbooks better over time? Really shows that amazing signal from someone they're having true ownership and the ability to have impact in the org. What does that do then? Each time someone new comes on, they polish that playbook. And it tells them now in any amount of detail from the receivers of that education moment, right? That playbook, it puts them in the driver's seat from an overall look. Here's the detail that was actually required. It's very easy for someone who's been doing it for years to really understand how to perform a task or function. Like, oh, you just do it like this. Well, there's a bunch of nuance that happens in there. And so what we do is during the shadow phase, that individual goes through and polishes that playbook.
Hmm.
Then they move on to the next phase, where they're the one actually executing against the playbook and making those updates as they continue to. And over time, as things change, right, new folks come into the organization and we repeat the task in time. In which case, that's how we're able to not only create them initially, right, because we're not putting over onus on our existing players to spend all this time doing something. Instead, we let the student, right, be the next teacher. And that's the most important moment of the show. That's how we pull that off.
Yeah, this is really interesting, Mark, because as we become more and more AI native as companies, there is a pressure directly from the C-suite, the board, where they want us to experiment with more AI solutions. There is a scenario where they actually want to replace a lot of people with AI, right? And the Exordium mindset is we want to give our customers the ability to do that. We are also leaning into the concept of AI. So it isn't just, hey, Mark, let's go and continue to scale your team 10x, 11, 12x. It's really around we want to have this flexibility, saying maybe there is a juncture in your customer success and support scenario a year from now where you don't need these many people. And the flexibility that you get in terminating the low performers or terminating an entire pod, because now you have been actually being able to build AI capabilities to do a lot more, is something that we propose and we lean into that. Can you share your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think these are all interesting concepts and they can play out in time, right? But the goal of business, right? So we're in the business of doing business. So let's get down to business, to quote Monty Brewster from back in the day. But what I would say is yes. However, the outcome or the result that we're trying to achieve as an organization is that we have more business. We're able to do more business faster than ever before. And my opinion here is that we'll need to continue to bring AI into the workflow with increasing speed so that our players, regardless of where they are playing, the human players can pick up and stand on the shoulders of that AI in time. What do I mean by that? I mean it in terms of deflection. So we measure our team's success in terms of how they've been able to deflect and when they've been able to deflect customer questions, right? So a deflection means how fast could I remove the friction from a customer, right? And can they do it before they ever have to speak to a human or between humans based on the type of access we provided to the AI as it sort of goes between tiers of support. So coming in through the front door, right, our customers get this ability to have their question answered by the AI. Should that not happen, should that deflection not occur, then what do we end up doing? We end up having that moment where a customer can actually have their ability to speak to an individual happen. But in that moment where they are speaking to the individual then can get additional information because our support engineer is now given additional context and that additional context comes through for them, and they can then provide it back to the customer. So our next point of deflection will be that agent, that AI agent, responding back to the customer that information, so they don't have to wait for our agent to respond. What does that look like? That looks like the internal AI agent having the ability to pull in that information automatically, send it back to the customer while they're waiting for one of our humans to take a look at their ticket and response. So we have lots of ways in order to augment what the humans are doing so humans can take on more and more things over time and really do more and more meaningful work. And that's why we created the playbooks in the way that we did, in the hopes that an agent would be able to pick up those tasks, allowing our folks who understand our business to then elevate, regardless if they're from Exordium or somewhere else. So I really see it as a hybrid model for an extended period of time. I'll use the auto industry as my example. Toyota, for example, has been very successful being in the hybrid business for a very long period of time based on all the data they see. I see the same thing going on for us for an extended period of time, right?
Yeah, I
And
love that.
sure, at some point in time, it may convert, but right now, we're not really seeing that conversion.
Yeah, I love that, Mark. And I think one of the I get into a lot of these conversations where folks have not worked with offshore talent. Folks have worked with generally onshore talent and maybe global talent, but they're still in-house. You've had the experience of working with a variety of onshore, on-site, and offshore talent, Exordium as well as other vendors. Any nuggets that you can share with leaders that are in your segment and in your role but have not worked with offshore talent? How can they get over the hump of doing something, because the cost arbitrage is massive. You're seeing anywhere from 70 to 80% cost reduction. You're seeing the ability to bring in people as quickly as you mentioned. You can build entire pods of technical support people in 6 weeks, but you can also terminate low performers at the end of their shift, which is at the end of the day. So you have a lot of this ability to drive actual performance and output without the overheads of recruiting, sourcing, HR, benefits, management. So how can a leader that hasn't had the experience that you have maybe test the waters?
Yeah, I would say, like with all things, start small. If you're really unsure and really build that success and that confidence, right? There's trust, but verify. If I tap into my CISO hat, and I would really look at that, right? So how can you build trust between two folks? And I would pick a particular piece of the organization that is operationalizable, right? You do have playbooks, or you feel like you'd be able to create them in short order, or you feel like you have a team that maybe is languishing in lots of mundane tasks or something to that effect that's just not inspiring for them anymore. How could you take that and quickly outsource it? And that's really the approach we took, which was how can we enable a whole new set of folks in order to be successful? I only have so much budget, and I need to be able to have a trust moment with someone to get it done. So what do? We took a small amount of budget, we carved out 5 spots, and then we tried to task those spots with some things that we knew were repeatable tasks. And in which case, we were very successful. Now, of course, there's always things that come along the way where you need to maybe move certain folks on or off. You maybe need to do something different there. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure that, hey, we gave it a whirl. It was safe, right? We were able to build trust, and in time, we'll be able to verify our results against what we did. And in my opinion, working from an offshore perspective, especially with a company like Exordium, you're able to get that verification quickly, which is really nice.
Yeah, love that vote of confidence, Mark. So you talked about results. So let's pivot into the results and the outcomes that Netlify and your team have actually had. You and I chatted last week, and it was a exciting metric for even us to see, where you talked about your CSAT scores change. You talked about response times, number of tickets addressed. And I thought that was one other very interesting nugget was you actually took the conversations out of the forum landscape and you brought it in-house. That was one of the phrases you mentioned. And that started getting me thinking, because that is the world that we live in. The amount of people that are touching the Netlify platform today, paid, unpaid, the volume is massive. And you, as a CS leader, you want to essentially be able to support all of them, because they could become future paying clients, or they're existing paying clients where you want to grow business, as you mentioned. Tell us about all of those outcomes.
So with the millions of developers who work with our platform, and they work with our platform every single day, right? We see a varying degree of tickets come through in time, but of course the volumes are always nice and high. And one thing we really wanted to do, as I mentioned earlier, was move that sort of forum support to be more of a creative state where people could share and ideate and those sorts of things. But we really wanted those folks to get direct access to us and our resources as quick as humanly possible. And so what we did was we took all tiers and we sent them through our Zendesk, where I said, okay, let everybody come through. They can ask their questions and we'll respond to them. Right. Up until then, we had sort of deflected them off to the forums, but that wasn't really the experience we wanted to have. Right. We want to be very developer centric. And in order to be developer centric, you have to let them ask some questions and you need to be able to respond to them. And so that's just what we did. And of course, that came with all the challenges therein. But what we ended up seeing was that, so for example, you mentioned CSAT. So CSAT comes through. I start taking a look at the numbers. As soon as we turned on what it was that happened there, um, the number of folks who scored us almost tripled, which is unbelievable, right? So we went up by many many percentage points there, uh, and at the same time, their satisfaction went higher as well. So, and we saw, double digit improvement there as well. So it's just unbelievable that we're able to do that. And what does that mean? It means that, look, those folks are not only satisfied, but they're increasingly satisfied over time. Is sort of the trend that we've been seeing. And that's all due to, our ability to respond to that customer in a timely manner, as well as provide them the information that requested and needed and the help that they needed. Now, from an enterprise perspective, we saw all the same things. We've been able to drop, response times anywhere from like 60 minutes to the enterprise down to about 6 minutes. How we're able to
Wow.
do that? We're able to get that done by offloading all of those other tasks that our top tier players were having to deal with, and we offloaded those to sort of the Playbook universe. And in that moment, right, when you're able to respond to a customer faster than ever before, or begin working on their issue faster than ever before, that's really a trust moment where, right, the developer is attempting to work at speed, and they're working on an active issue. Every minute that they lose, right, time is money, and we really want them to be able to operate at speed. And so, just having some of these things be available to us, where we're able to respond to them in a not just timely manner, but faster than they're ever expecting, is really where we want to be. And that's really the most exciting piece for us, is that we've now been able to uplevel the careers of everyone involved in the process. And at the same time, right, our outcome is we want to do an amazing job by the customer. And so that's really what we've been able to do, right? How
Yeah,
do we
yeah, it's
have
amazing.
a very customer centric experience?
Yeah, lovely. I mean, so when I think about the KPIs, you're like faster time to value for your customers, number of response times. You're bringing people and essentially saving time for developers. You're also enabling leaders and employees up Netlify to up-level themselves and focus on higher value items, right? Your engineers are not getting pummeled with low-end tickets because now you have sort of this gated approach where there is a human that is responding to the end customer. So that's super, super interesting and exciting to hear. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of these practices are folks that on the go to market side, people have not tested for natural reasons of the fear of moving offshore.
Yeah, I think the key piece here though is that I really like to produce a high value output, right? I want excellence in everything that we do. And I want that high value output to be there. And in which case, you have to really change your mindset that you want the outcomes for every customer, regardless of how much they're paying you, to be of top quality. And that's really where we want to be, right? We want to be really, really good, and we want to be really, really fast at what we do. But we don't want it to come off cheap to the customer. Right? We want a very high quality outcome, regardless of the type of ticket. And those are the things that we really scrutinize ourselves against and hold ourselves accountable to. Right. And my team, look, we're not perfect. We make mistakes, we have errors, whatever that might be, but we will be better from them. And folks have really taken that on, and they want to be really, really good when it comes to the eyes of the customer. And that's really what we pride ourselves on, right?
Yeah,
We want to
and
ensure
Mark,
that not only the direct CSAT, but the implied CSAT is there as well. And we know
yeah,
that they're satisfied based on our interaction with them.
yeah, and I think we subscribe to the same sort of mindset, right? We want to make sure that we're involved in hiring the best folks for companies like Netlify. We are also invested in the long-term success, which is why even the way our business model is structured is we don't hold our customers to any contract terms, right? People would, if they want to scale at a two-person team now and then terminate the two-person team tomorrow, they absolutely can, right? So we're also, again, the whole concept of how do we differentiate ourselves from the traditional body shops that have been offshore partners to actually becoming true partners, right? We are bringing in the concept of pod leaders. So you've got a business development team that is entirely sort of managed by a general manager in the Philippines that is managing all BD effort. You have various teams on the Salesforce and Salesforce administration side that are managed by US resources. And then you've got your entire CS and support organization that's managed by one of your sort of leading engineers. So we love to invest in holistic approaches for our customers. And we've actually done a great case study for all our viewers for Netlify. We've been able to talk about all of the various departments and go-to-market that we're supporting. So happy to share that as a follow-up. But, let's sort of move into sort of closing call to action sort of thing. I shared with you I love always sharing some actionable topics or items that our viewers can actually go and implement in their jobs literally tomorrow. We talked about a lot of variety of things. We talked about experimentation. We talked about run books, playbooks. We talked about sort of leveraging and sort of elevating the work for your in-house resources. We talked about cost arbitrage and managing things from a optimized standpoint when it comes to cost efficiency using offshore resources. That is a lot of topics. But if you had to go and say, hey, given my experience at Netlify and prior, given my experience in working with body shops, offshore teams, Exordiom Talent, what are two or three things that our viewers can take away that they can really implement in their jobs tomorrow based on your experience?
Yeah, I would say that back to the operational portion of the show, if you feel like you have a component that is able to be operationalized. So, for example, now I have Exordium Talent not only in my sort of level one and level two support on the support side of the house, but I also have a couple of security engineers. I have a developer that I'm working now. I also have help on the IT side of the house. We have, business development representatives that have been hired as well, right? We have folks on the finance side of the house. So we've been able to offshore many different areas within the business. And those are the things where we find them to be operationally valuable. And those things that are able to be playbooked. You may or may not have a playbook written down. I encourage you to do so. But if you feel like a task can be operationalized, then those are the ones you want to go after. And in which case, you can really start to think about your talent in a different way so that your players are able to operate in a manner that behooves their career and stage of career of where they are. It provides opportunity for everyone in order to do that. So I would highly encourage folks to really think through a model like this and how it can be beneficial to them. That's really where I would start and thinking about really where they can be.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mark. We've got two questions here, Mark. One is from Bruce, and it's very much in line with the playbooks that you mentioned. I'll read it out for you. Any recommendations for development of playbooks for businesses that have grown up using tribal knowledge, such as learning on the job? Bruce
Yeah,
is the head
this
of
is the
solutions
perfect
at
model.
Squarespace.
Yeah, this is the perfect model for that. So that's where you can bring in an individual and have them shadow and create the playbooks for you. That's how we've ended up extending our playbooks. Is that we started out, the team just went out. It was amazing. They created 33. We had none. We started with zero. Then we gave the team the opportunity and we said, hey, you can actually, so it's like you can give a bit of a carrot in this moment. It's like, look, you can go out and create the playbooks, but it would be fantastic so that our folks here get a faster running start, and I can move you on to new things faster than ever before. But in this model where you do have folks shadow, do, right? That sort of idea. Now you can have them, if you don't have the playbook and they're shadowing, you can create the framework for them to then do the playbooks within, modify over time, and continue to polish them. Tribal knowledge is just like that. But if you want the fastest way to get to documentation, it's have somebody new try and write it down, and then try and perform that task using what they wrote down, right? And in that moment, you'll figure out where it is, and then you have the person that they were shadowing help them correct that playbook, and now you can make those things better over time. It's pretty great in that way.
Awesome. Mark, one more question. It's from Kumail. He's an account executive. His question is, how did the initial transition to offshore look or feel for you? What were your biggest hurdles?
Yeah. Well, what it looked like initially was I only had so much budget. And that move to offshore, right, really pressed the need because I wanted to be able to support more customers than ever before. We're talking about double and triple the number of customers that we see, right? We see that with especially with the age of vibe coding and all that other stuff and all those platforms that we do support. Right? Netlify is the deploy target for almost every one of these vibe coding platforms out there. If it isn't today, it will be tomorrow. And so we've seen our usage explode. And we've taken all of those folks and we brought them into our queues directly. And so we had that in mind, which is there's no way we could afford to staff, right, in traditional means. So we needed to find a way to staff up and staff down in different areas. So what we wanted to do was de-risk the situation, which is we think we need to hire these individuals today. Tomorrow that could change, and we need to work with a partner that will allow us to do that. And that's one of the key points is that the partner has to be able to pivot quickly with you and your business. They can't pivot, you're going to be in a lot of trouble in time. And so we found that we were able to pivot quickly. And so we put out an initial set of job descriptions. We polished those job descriptions quickly after we figured out they're not really resonating. Then we found the right set of folks and we moved forward. So initially we had lots of potential concerns around our ability to pivot with where the business needed to be, with all of those unknowns of millions of new developers hitting our platform that weren't the same type of user we traditionally had, right? The traditional developer was cobblering and putting together components, and they really understand the inner workings of the web and how it works. This new set of developers, for us, right, they're assuming things work. And so we're having to change the way that we do business, as is all of our partners. And in which case, right, now you need to be able to be super flexible with the type of individual you're ramping. And that's where having them create the playbooks, having them polish the playbooks, having them take on that work, especially when they're just learning the job, is fantastic. It's a lot like taking notes, But at the end of the day, right, we wanted to de-risk the situation. So we put that in the hands of those folks in order to make better. It just happened to be that our team was super ready to go through and jettison a bunch of tasks. And so they went off and wrote them all down. That's fantastic. Right. So carrot, in that way. I didn't even need that. There was no need for a stick. It was just the carrot. And they took it hook, line, and sinker, and they just went out and made it all happen. It was really fantastic. And so now they're able to work on the things that they care about most, and other folks have opportunity. It's pretty great.
Amazing. Thank you, Mark. I think that's the end of our questions here. Mark, I wanted to thank you so much for your time today. Your experience was definitely enlightening. We love being partners with you. We love being on just even the part of the journey and this explosive growth that Netlify has been on. So thank you so much for your time today and sharing your experience.
Yeah, I was really happy to be here in order to really highlight all the stuff that you've been able to do for us. It's been pretty amazing, and we've been really successful with it. While Netlify is going through this explosive growth. I mean, if you take a look at what the enterprise is going to need to take care of in the upcoming future, and all those thoughts that we put around that, especially when it comes to vibe coding, and this, what the developer needs to do in order to stay up and stay at speed, it's been really helpful. So, really appreciate the partnership. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the time. See you later, Mark.
Absolutely appreciate it. Thank you.